Redevelopment Agency. We are here today sitting as a selection committee for the Currie Park renovation, restoration, redo. So we're starting with item number 1, which is a presentation of 4 design concepts for Currie Park, and selection is whatever it is, of the top-ranked firm by the CRA board. So we're sitting here as a CRA board as well as the selection committee. Mr. Hayden, you want to tell us what we're going to do today?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Commissioners, my name is Frank Hayden. I'm the Director of Procurement here at the City of West Palm Beach. You're correct, Madam Mayor. We are asking you to, at the end of the day, make a selection of one of these 4, and then direct staff to begin the negotiation portion of that. On January 16th, the city issued an RFP to 5 pre-qualified design firms selected from the request for qualifications to transform Currie Park into a world-class park. And here lists the 5 firms. And the firm should provide architectural and engineering services, including but not limited to conceptual design, design development, preparation of construction documents, civic engagement. As I initially indicated to you, we had requested from 5 firms to respond to an RFP. As you can tell here, there are only 4. We reached out to that 5th firm, asking them why they had not responded, and we never heard back from them. And so we took that to mean that they were not going to respond to the RFP, and so we moved ahead. So each firm will be given 30 minutes, and the presentation's outline is as follows. You'll get 15 minutes, introduction, team, design approach, past experience, and then 15 minutes for questions. I want to make sure that everybody is aware, or at least understand, that you cannot alter during this presentation what your original response to the RFP was. You cannot add to enhance that. This is listing the evaluation criteria that we'll be going through as well. And so go ahead. This lists the firms in terms of when you will be presenting, and we have a clock up here that will be running in terms of giving you time for your response. The last thing I would like to say is that we cannot physically require you to vacate the room while one of the other proposers is speaking. We can only ask, and I'm not sure if they can do that anymore, suggest that out of a courtesy that you would vacate the premises while your competitor is responding. But that is a choice for you. We cannot mandate that or require that to make that happen. At the end of the presentations, if you do choose to leave, you'll be welcome back to hear the discussion between the commissioners on the various presentations and witness their decision at the end of the day. So, Madam Mayor, that's...
Okay, thank you very much. Well, we're very excited to be here today. This is something that we've all been wanting to see move forward. This is a beautiful area of our city, and I think the potential is so amazing for this to be quite a stunning place. So, with that said, we will move forward. Well, you know the schedule, so go ahead.
Right, yeah. So, this will be Moore and Associates will be the first presenters.
And the first,
Chinmore and Associates.
10 more?
Yeah.
And the first 15 minutes is,
It's their presentation, Madam Mayor, and then
Then
you as a
questions.
commission will have
Okay.
15 minutes.
so we're going to
raise
start
questions.
with Chen Moore.
So let us know when you're ready, and the clock will start.
Yes, Commissioner?
Thank you. Mr. Hayden,
Mr. Hayden, we have a question.
can you tell us or tell the public how the order was selected?
It is done alphabetically.
Well, a really creative way.
Yes, ma'am. It saves a lot of confusion
It
out there.
does.
Yeah. No, that's it, Commissioner.
Let me just get it started in slideshow and make sure that we know what the buttons are to advance it. All right, so use the arrow keys, 4 and 6. All right.
All right, count down 10 seconds.
Okay. Go ahead. When it counts down, don't go until it starts.
Yeah.
Don't listen to me.
We
just
don't want
look
to break
at
the rules, you know. All right, so good morning. I'm Chris
morning.
Betancourt. I'm the landscape architecture principal for Chenmore and Associates. We're located here in downtown West Palm Beach. We are going to serve as the project manager and the designers of record for Currie Park. We have worked with the city on their park system master plan, their stormwater system master plan, and we're currently working on 26th Street, which feeds into Currie Park. So we're very familiar with the project area and all of its components. So Mayor, I recently attended your State of the City address, and you really inspired me. I think your message was that when we pull together and go big, anything is possible. And I think that is very much the story here with Currie Park. Currie Park, it's a little unloved, but in reaching out to the community, we find that there are people that really want to love it. They really want to embrace it. So you can't do this alone. It takes a collaboration of local and international experts. So with me to round out our local team, I have Mr. Bruce Lewis, who's going to lead our public engagement effort. He's very well known around West Palm Beach. He's supported by Dr. David Barth, who's in the audience, who's an expert in parks and recreation stakeholder engagement. I also have the firms of Olin and Biederman Redevelopment Ventures. They're well known for designing, managing, and operating parks, signature parks around the world. They're best known for Bryant Park in New York City, which I'm sure many of you have visited. Biederman still manages that park 30 years later without any public funding, which is very impressive. They're represented by Hallie Boyce, principal of Olin, and Ben Donsky, vice president of Biederman Redevelopment Ventures. So, in thinking about going big, when we started to analyze the site, we really understood that Currie Park, it's not just a project in itself, but it can really be a catalyst to reinvigorating our waterfront. And this started out as a world-class park, but now we're really thinking about it as a world-class waterfront. With the two activation points of the downtown and Currie Park, pretty much from the Okeechobee Boulevard, the financial district, all the way up to Currie Park, there are 15 public parks that are largely undeveloped. And so we see Currie Park as a catalyst project that can give us the opportunity for economic development, social justice, equity, public tourism, and resiliency. And going big requires very effective public engagement.
Well, when you have a world-class kind of park that you're trying to develop, you need a world-class public engagement process. And really, we've broken it down into a strategy that has really three components. The first component really entails a steering committee that's comprised of all the stakeholders that we will touch and those that we have touched. The homeless outreach, we believe that the homeless is actually a stakeholder here in this, and we're going to assist in trying to mitigate some of the issues that they face. Immediate activation of the park is another way for us to do some field testing, try out some new concepts, get feedback immediately from individuals that participate. How are we going to do this? We have a host of tools that we want to use for communications. As I mentioned a little earlier, the one-on-one interviews have already taken place with the neighboring patrons. We'll use these tools and many more to have a seamless approach. And the who is very important here. We dissected the entire community and kind of carved it down into 4 major sectors. And the one that's most important that we're going to take on first is the park neighbor patrons. Those are people who live very close to the area, that use the park frequently, neighbors, business people, and the like. The only group that we have not talked to in this particular diagram is the park stakeholders, which is yourselves, Parks and Recreation Department, and the CRA. Well, in our engagement, we went out probably 4 or 5 months ago, and we started to talk to people, and we gleaned some very good information. We learned from former Commissioner Moffitt that there used to be a landing strip there, and that was memorialized by a row of palm trees that kind of keep the memory of that landing strip intact. That inspired one of our concepts, as a matter of fact. We've talked to various people, dog lovers, Marine District, the Lord's Place, who we know is a partner of yours in the homeless efforts. And Mr. Browning, up there in the red shirt, is a gentleman who shared a lot of history with us. And to the right of that is his park board uniform in baseball. So we went back and we went to the current, and we're looking at the future. And to talk about those concepts is Hallie.
Good morning. So what is a world-class park? More importantly, how do we transform this incredible site into one? Based on Olin's work abroad and throughout the country, we have many lessons learned that we will be bringing to the table. Starting with the 11th Street Bridge Park, which is a destination park in Washington, D.C., that connects historically separated and very different economically neighborhoods across the Anacostia River. It has cutting-edge equitable development engagement strategies as part of the process. So we're bringing all that knowledge, and to Bruce's point, it will be the basis of any successful design here. In addition, we need to design the park, as you can see, to connect both to the neighborhoods and to the water, to welcome people in all directions. Like Pier 26 in New York, we will need to provide a variety of activities to engage users of all ages. Like Camana Bay in Cayman, where we created a whole new town, we will want to integrate all the modes of transportation, whether it be pedestrians, bikes, a trolley stop perhaps at 23rd Street, and also canoe and kayak or boat access from the water's edge. Like Canal Park in Washington, D.C., which was a build it and they will come situation, the park came before the buildings in that area of the Capitol Riverfront neighborhood. We will want to also work to reveal the history that's here. We have the wonderful MLK Memorial, and there's a potential to expand upon that idea, potentially with a Black Heritage Trail connecting to other sites in your downtown area. Like Herman Park, we will work to layer the site with ecology-based plantings that will provide shade, improve water quality, and provide seasonal interest throughout the year. And finally, as Ben will talk more broadly, we will work to create a vibrant place like Bryant Park, but think of operations and maintenance early on in the design process, so we know we are designing for long-term success. We have 3 initial thoughts today, 3 initial ideas that we wanted to share with you, called the runway, beach and boardwalk, and the pavilion. All these plans have the components, your desired wish list of program that you've gleaned from early community engagement that you see on the left, and we've come up with some additional ideas through our brainstorming. In essence, what differentiates the three are ideas about play in the first option called Runway, and then this idea of celebrating the water's edge and the ability to touch water in the second idea. And then third, how to incorporate potentially a destination cafe in the park in number 3. So I'll just run through these quickly. The first was inspired by this historic photo when we went to the Historical Society and learned that seaplanes had traditionally landed and departed from the park. We thought it would be a wonderful idea, a way of connecting both land and water through this thematic play area and then promenade that would reach out over the water and allow people to take in the views up and down the Intracoastal Waterway. Children would have the opportunity to have a fun and engaging experience and actually cool down with potentially having works of art such as these oversized flamingos that you see here that might be interactive. The second idea is called Beach and Boardwalk, and it really celebrates this idea of creating a beach at Currie Park. I will say that the plantings, we would add a lot of, I know you have a tree program here, we would encourage additional shade trees, particularly along Flagler Drive to sort of define the park. And then as one gradually moves to the water, create a more open planting experience, but also provide a living shoreline. I think it will be a wonderful place to attract both families and I think also millennials, a place to see and be seen at the beach and boardwalk, a chance to refresh and reflect. This is what it would feel like to walk along that beach edge. And then the third idea, the pavilion, is really taking the idea of food as a great connector that it is, and celebrating it. We would have this shady respite around the event lawn that could be used informally on a daily basis, but accommodate all of your special events that will attract tourists from around the world. And then we have ideas about this wonderful pavilion that might glow at night, casting beautiful patterns on the waterfront. It would really be a special moment on the Intracoastal Waterway.
Thanks, Elliot. I think ultimately that's what this project is about, is creating lots of special moments for the entire community in Currie Park. And we're going to do that through activating the park. And when we think about activating the park, it's important to think about a balanced strategy for doing so. And so we would propose having a broad base of amenities that are out in the park for people to use on a daily basis. This might be things like fitness equipment, games, books and magazines, newspapers, free Wi-Fi, but a whole host of amenities that would enable people to know that whenever they go to Currie Park, there's going to be something to do. And on top of that, we would layer on scheduled programming, things like fitness classes that might happen a few times a week, a number of things that might happen once a week, say photography classes or language classes or a movie series, things that might happen once or twice a month, like book clubs. And those special events, those large events that we typically think of when we think of activated parks, we view those as the icing on the cake. That's our civic celebrations. Those are the big festivals and concerts that also help promote the park. And that balance will allow us to appeal to a lot of different user groups. So a couple months ago I was in town and we actually met with Raphael Clementi and heard a little bit about how he's activating some of the downtown plazas. And we would take similar strategies to appeal to different groups of people, different times of day, to keep Currie Park active throughout the day, throughout the year. And this is all going to be driven by our community engagement process. This is a huge focus for us, is understanding all of the different interest groups in the park and uncovering some new ones that we might not know about yet. People who aren't currently using the park but would if given the proper incentives and infrastructure. So all those additional people are going to bring more maintenance obligations. So we would create a full staffing and operating plan for this. But I should point out that we're not just consultants. We actually also operate 6 different parks in 4 states. And so we understand how to execute these plans and the importance of all of this staff, whether they're sanitation, security, gardeners, our customer service and programming attendants. All of those people are absolutely critical because they also collect great information for us that we have this whole suite of analytical tools we use to help manage parks, and we would customize and apply those to Currie Park. And then, of course, the question is, how do you pay for all that? Well, we also have experience executing really sophisticated revenue plans, and we would look to build a revenue plan for Currie Park that draws on lots of different revenue streams, whether that's food and beverage, sponsorships, philanthropy, public and private events, but also looking at ways to capture some of the real estate value that's going to be created by the revitalization of the park. Which will naturally lead into discussions around public-private partnerships. Now, we know the city is interested in innovative approaches to park governance and management. We've actually put together a number of public-private partnerships all across the country, both obviously Bryant Park, but Clyde Warren Park in Dallas, Levy Park in Houston, and probably a couple dozen others. So we would work on a customized solution because no two of these are exactly alike, but it is something that we hope will form a template that can then be applied to other parks across West Palm Beach, just like our strategies for activation.
So this team has been collaborating now since May for 10 months, and we're ready to hit the ground running. We're dedicated to bringing a world-class Currie Park to the city that's fun and engaging. We're going to pull together and go big.
Thank you. Okay, now we are going to go into the questions. If you certainly take a seat. All right, Commissioner Schoaf, I'm going to start with you. This is your district, and I
Thank
know
you.
you're excited about this.
It's a very, very exciting day, and thank you for your presentation. I was just curious, you have a lot of great elements. Can you speak to what your schedule would be for planning and then implementation of any design that you might come up with?
Absolutely. So I'm assuming you've looked through the approach, and we have a full schedule. So essentially right now, the way we've planned it, it's about 2.5 years from execution of our contract to the final construction. And that takes into account the fact that our coastal engineers have identified that the seawall needs to be replaced. So that's a long lead item in terms of permitting. So, and also the 100-slip marina is also a long lead time in terms of permitting. So with permitting time, it's 2.5 years. Design would probably take about a year. We would do public engagement through that entire time. The important thing for us is it's really to keep everybody excited while the process is happening. So we'd like to do like temporary activation and start to reach out to the homeless and get people accustomed to the changes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner James?
Thank you. I know that you have reached out to the homeless, and it seems like you've addressed that issue, but I'd like for you to drill a little bit deeper. Even when I looked at the day in the park, there looks like 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. The park is not activated. What are your thoughts, ideas about it not turning into, as it is now, just a place for the homeless to hang out? And how do you...
That's not all it is, Commissioner.
Well, no, I don't mean it's all it is, but it is a place where the homeless congregate. I don't think that's any great secret. So how do we address that during those hours? And what happens? How do you get them to move on?
Well, first, we would work closely with the Parks Department to understand all the existing efforts, and I think that's the important first step. Typically, in a situation like that, we would employ 24-hour private security, but whether the park remains open overnight or closed overnight is something that we have not really explored yet. But in general, our philosophy is to have a well-designed set of park rules, and anybody who is following those rules is welcome to be in the park. Typically, we have about the same number of homeless people in Bryant Park today as we did in 1985, which is we just have 3,000 or 4,000 other people there at the same time.
That's the difference. Yeah.
I might add to that, Commissioner James, that as the park activates, it kind of discourages the homeless, so they start to migrate to other places. I do know that for the MLK Memorial, we have plans to install surveillance cameras that will be connected to the police department, so they could dispatch out a squad car to kind of disband that situation. But over and above that, the homeless organizations, I call them hot organizations, homeless organization teams, typically go out and do canvassing. And any information that we can get from some of the homeless people, there's a trust factor that has to be taken place. And those individuals need to trust whoever, but more eyes, more ears, more listening people to encourage them to go get the help that they need in a multitude of ways is part of our strategy as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Ryan?
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation, and it looks beautiful. I echo Commissioner Schoaf's excitement about getting something going. You mentioned that you think from the time of the contract signing, it would be about 2.5 years. And my question really revolves around the regulatory agencies that would be engaged in executing a final contract and a final plan. So if you could speak to your experience, and if you think that all of that would need to occur prior to execution of a contract with the city.
So in terms of permitting, we have a fully local team that's used to dealing with all the agencies here. Gina Cielo, who's here in the audience, she's our coastal engineer with Cummings and Cedarburg, and they're really the longest lead item. She used to work at DEP, so she's very familiar with the process. Would you like to elaborate?
Sure. So the in-water work always takes an extensive amount of time. We're very familiar with that. Cummins Cedarburg is a coastal marine engineering firm, so that's all we do is only in-water work. In my experience, a project of this magnitude, specifically the 100-slip marina, from the time of permit processing commencement would take an upwards of 2 years. You've got several factors that you have to address during this process. A lot of it is a public commenting period. Specifically, the marina would be affecting state-owned lands, so you'd have to go through the leasing process, which is a public notice process. Then the Army Corps of Engineers also has a public noticing period as well. The preliminary engagement with the public is going to be very important. Something of this size, I would anticipate a lot of public comments, and those will have to be addressed during the permitting process. It could potentially, delay a project.
Thank you.
And we can also take a phased approach. So, for example, we could build all the landside amenities a lot quicker.
Sure.
And then build the marina later.
Yeah. And you would address those first.
We would address those first.
Commissioner Neering?
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for your response to the RFP and a very thorough proposal. The question I have, and it was outlined in the RFP, is really around the connectivity between the neighborhoods. And so that whether you are a resident that lives in Pleasant City or Northwood, that you're going to feel welcome to Currie Park. You've talked about that in your proposal. I'm wondering if, again, knowing that I guess is fluid, right? Because you'll continue to reach out and this will somewhat evolve between now. But can you talk a little bit about that? Because that's of the utmost importance to
and we're aware of that. So in speaking with some of the local businesses, one of their biggest items was, how do people know from the park that our businesses are here? And there's, that requires all of us to collaborate on that. There are design interventions. For example, the 26th Street project that I'm working on now is actually one of the design interventions, connecting the park to the business district. Ben?
Our activation strategy largely relies on partnerships with local businesses, nonprofits, and local institutions. Apart from those daily amenities that I spoke about, which typically are operated by a nonprofit, most of the actual activation of the park is through relationships with local businesses and institutions, nonprofit museums, universities, and so forth. And so what that has an effect of doing is kind of bringing the whole community into the park. Again, just referencing Clyde Warren in Dallas, is that by the time we open that, so I worked for about 2 years, bringing every museum, university, about 24 small businesses, another dozen nonprofits into the daily life of the park. And so that they have their own constituencies, they have their own audiences, so that helps bring people to the park who might not otherwise have been there. And then it also creates new connections between businesses and institutions, and it also gives them exposure to audiences that they might not have. And so the activation strategy is, I think, a key piece of really connecting it to another neighborhood, not just physically, but socially as well.
I'll just add that that's been key on the 11th Street Bridge Park in Washington, D.C. as well, to have key nonprofits that have owned the key programs, namely the Environmental Education Center, Anacostia Watershed Society, that's been working on the river for 3 decades. Martha's Table is going to take ownership over the cafe that will be on that Bridge Park project. So designing that network and getting continuous community engagement throughout the design process will be key. And making sure that people can afford some of the food options, for instance, in a park,
Right.
to make them feel welcome, yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Lambert?
Were you going to? Okay. Thank you. I think we can all appreciate how excited we are for this, and that you've identified a number of different areas that may be challenges that you've researched and that we can overcome, whether it's connectivity or the permitting process. So I'm curious, in your experience of working with all of these other large parks, what is it? Is there any one thing that you're concerned about that we should be aware of now for this project that might create some challenges, or just things that we should know that you're already identified and looking at?
Well, selecting us would be one obstacle removed.
Thank you, Bruce.
Just saying.
Why don't you take it, Ally?
Yeah, I would say, I don't know that I see concerns, but I see real opportunity to do more of what you've already started, which is testing out various programs on site and getting people down to the waterfront and used to being there. We've done that at the 11th Street Bridge Park. They have an annual river festival now. It started out with just a few hundred people, and now it draws 10,000 people down to the waterfront in a place of DC where no one used to go. So I think these sort of ideas of temporary landscapes, trying out, do the umbrellas work better than the Adirondack chairs, and so on and so forth, is a real opportunity early on while we're designing and finalizing plans.
And I think from my perspective, I think it's absolutely critical to get the governance structure right from the very beginning, and that there's a really big opportunity, again, just in that you have these development sites that are next door. It's probably not too early to really begin discussions around those value capture mechanisms. Is we need to get that right in order to ensure the long-term success for the park.
Thank you. I have a question about connectivity to Northwood Village and the extension of Northwood Road. Do you see that as part of your plans for Currie Park?
So, I'll talk to that a little bit. We know it's desirable. It's desirable from a design standpoint, from a connectivity standpoint. Is it achievable? It is absolutely achievable. It just depends what we want to trade for it. So, Dixie Highway it's a DOT road, and so we're going to have to deal with the DOT. And it's really an access management issue in that we have 23rd Street and we have Bethesda Place just to the north of that. And the distance is not very far. And DOT typically only permits new openings, about like 600, 800 feet? 600 to 800 feet from one another. So we would have to look at potentially giving up the right-of-way or closing as through traffic 23rd Street and Bethesda Place in order to get our opening. And then, of course, we have to deal with the developer And we all, we know what hurdles that could create. In terms of the distance from Dixie Highway to the next North-South Street, it's not great enough to be able to meander it sort of safely down onto 23rd. So we really need to look at coming like straight through from a geometric standpoint.
Yeah, I think so too. Is that a DOT road, Northwood Road?
No, Northwood is not. Dixie is.
Dixie is.
Dixie is. So we
Oh,
need to
so I
permit
see what you're saying.
opening on Dixie.
I understand. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, back to Commissioner Shove. Got a minute and 20 seconds.
Okay. I just wanted to touch on something that both the mayor has touched on and Commissioner Neering, and that is the connectivity, which I think is really important to this project. You're dealing in a unique location where you have different neighborhoods of socioeconomic makeup, ethnicity, et cetera. I mean, I have residents of Pleasant City that remember going down and playing baseball in this park. So what efforts can we make to make sure that our new design is there for everyone and avoids, I guess, what we could term as park gentrification?
Yeah, I mean, that's something I'm used to doing. We operate a park in downtown Newark, New Jersey, which has very similar issues, and we've been working on a project in Indianapolis where we have one side the most expensive condos in the entire city, and the other side some of the most impoverished folks in the entire city. And so I think, to your point, making everybody feel welcome. Hallie mentioned a restaurant that if you're creative about the concept, and we've done this before, like in downtown Newark, the burger place we had, you could go in there for $6 and get a lunch, or if you wanted, you could spend $20. But it was all burgers, and avoided those issues around exclusivity. And I think the programming and the community engagement is absolutely going to be key to that.
Yeah, let me add to that, I think.
Time's up. Thank you. Perfect. Thank you all for your presentation. It was very well done, and we know that you have a lot of experience with our city, and we appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. You can wait across the hall if you'd like and reflect. I cannot force you, Mr. Lewis. We look very favorable upon it. How about that?
Mayor, I have a
Yes, Commissioner.
I have a question for Frank on,
Mr. Hayden, we have a question for you.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Lambert?
thank you. I don't know if you want me to ask this now or at the end, but I had a question because I was adding up the SBE percentages, and it looks like on all of the applicants that you add up the sub amounts and it equals the total amount at the top, except for on this first one. I just wanted to make sure I was understanding what these calculations mean. Because when I added them up, I got 25%, but it says 20% at the top.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, are you saying when you added up what was being proposed, it came to 25%? Is that what?
If I'm doing my math right,
Your math is correct.
Okay.
and I checked their application also said 20.
Yeah.
So I didn't know.
And we do not, we don't feel bad for people who exceed what we've asked them for.
I just wanted to make sure I was understanding it
No,
correctly,
no.
so it should all add up.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
All right. Okay, so our next presenters is EDSA Incorporated. As you understood, as I said earlier, if you were here, you'll have a total of 30 minutes. 15 of those minutes is for your presentation as it relates to your proposal. Then the commission will take 15 minutes to ask you any questions. You cannot talk or provide information other than the proposals that you submitted. In other words, you can't share anything that's going to enhance what you've already done. So you speak about the proposal that they reviewed, and then they'll ask you any questions as it relates to that. So we want to wait for the commissioner to return. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's get started. We're going to count down, and when the buzzer goes, you can start talking.
It's like a rocket ship. Good morning. How are you all?
Good morning.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for allowing us this time in your schedule to present our qualifications for this project. We're very excited about it. Let's start with an introduction, and then I'm going to go into our design approach and touch on some past experience as you've asked us to present. My name is Kona Gray. I'm a principal with EDSA Incorporated. We're land planners, landscape architects, and urban designers based down in Fort Lauderdale, but we have our roots here in West Palm. Some of you may not know that our founder, Ed Stone, spent many of his years, younger years, in Palm Beach. One of the reasons why he decided to become a landscape architect was due to this wonderful environment. We've been around since 1960. We have several design awards. We really believe in quality, and we have a serious global presence, so we go around the world doing what we do. Team assembled here for you today is not a team of convenience. This is a team that we've known for years. We either work together now or we work together on other projects in the area. As you can see here, Michael Red, some of you may know, has done a lot of projects right here in the community. We have Architectonica on our team as well. Bernardo couldn't be with us today, as well as ATM. Esteban Biondi also couldn't be with us, but we have Trent here with McMahon Associates, who is a traffic engineer. We have Gary, and we also have Mike Spruce from Kimley Horn. So I'm going to touch on our design approach. For us, design is integral. We think design is important. As design is also democratic. It really should be inclusive of all types of people. We're very excited about your project because you have a lot of wonderful dreams and aspirations. This site is amazing. I was there again this morning. Talking to some of the homeless guys, and they were enjoying this wonderful environment that should be enjoyed by everyone. I did get an opportunity to speak to one of the park's employees who was there cleaning up, and people really do care about this park. But for you, there are several things you want to do, and you've already started, which is very exciting. You have been engaging the community with your visioning exercise. We're very proud of what the CRA has been doing, and we know that you are moving forward on something that should be pretty exciting. For us, there are a lot of things you want to do that are pretty straightforward, redesign of tennis courts, playgrounds, things of that nature. But I think what's going to be really important is bringing people to the water and really trying to create a place for people to connect with the environment. Our design process is pretty straightforward. It's inclusive, it's iterative as well. We spend a lot of time going back and forth. We want to hear from you. So the first thing we do is listen. We don't start designing until we've heard from you. Many proposers may show up with some big ideas and concepts today, but that's not genuine. We want to show up and listen to you and understand what you're trying to do. We then analyze what we hear and what we're learning, and then we start to design. And when we start to design, it's informed. From that point, we start to review the ideas, and we pick them apart. I mean, we have thick skin, we're designers. So we want you to really challenge the ideas so we can refine them and come back with some consensus in terms of what we're trying to achieve together. So we do community engagement. We understand it big time. We do it on all of our projects. EDSA typically leads it with our team. We have local people on the ground, and what you may realize from this team is that this is a local team, this is also a national team, and it's a global team. We've all worked in this area and around the world on all types of projects. But for us, community engagement is huge. You have to do your research. We all understand that local matters. There's a lot going on in this community that's pretty amazing. And we want you to be able to anticipate the next steps. There's nothing worse than getting this angry person calling you up that you forgot about me. So we always want to be very upfront and transparent. We do it in several ways. We do these dialogue sessions, one-on-one sessions. We have stakeholder interviews. And then we open it up to the public. We spent the last year or so doing this in the city of Boca Raton, and they show up. Okay? We've had over 100 people in all of our meetings, and it was pretty amazing. And we got the best design because of that. And then we meet with core city leadership to really hone in on what we're trying to do before we start to go further. But leadership may tell you that here's the big ideas, but you need your staff to be on board too. So there's quite a transition back and forth between staff and leadership. But for us, all of these formats depend on purpose and doing something that's good for you. And then we gain consensus. It's simple. You know, a lot of people think it's challenging, but when you listen to people, you learn quite a bit, and you're able to really bring it back to them. You got to be upfront. You got to understand that locals represent the project. It's not us. We're here as stewards of the land, and you have to do it with honesty and integrity. So we know this site very well. As a matter of fact, EDSA has done a lot of pro bono work in the past and been involved in the community. We're actually looking at this area right now with the folks from the Heisinger family. They understand how important the area is as well, and they want to join you in trying to make it better. So we actually had our interns that came in this year do a one-week design charrette around a larger scope, but Currie Park was included in that. And it was really interesting to learn from them, from their young minds, as what they saw on the ground. They drove through the neighborhoods, and you can see how it changes as you go from east to west. And all the different things that we think we can do to make it better really excites us. So it is about connecting neighborhoods. It's about providing this economic equality for everyone. We think that engagement is important. We talked a lot about the importance of the MLK Jr. Memorial, and that's something that we should really highlight. And at the end of the day, it's all about creating community. So we do this through a lot of different opportunities in different ways. Basically, we begin our design with conceptual ideas. They're just big ideas. We call it blue sky thinking. There's no wrong answer. This is an opportunity for everybody to be heard and to really get engaged in the process. And then we start to dive into what's important. For us, what we see immediately is that connecting people to the water is huge. It's spiritual. It's something important that everybody should have a chance to engage in, and that really excites us. And then one thing you note in a lot of really signature waterfront projects is there's typically a promenade. We did it in Fort Lauderdale with the wave wall. We've done it in different areas around the world. And when you get people engaged into the water, walking a promenade, seeing their friends, seeing their neighbors, things really start to click. And so we want to make sure that we create a waterfront promenade for all. And as I discussed earlier, we definitely want to protect those iconic signature elements that are there now and create new ones. So it's about creating these Instagrammable moments for people to get down there and take selfies and really, show off what's great about West Palm Beach. So after we do a lot of designing, again, I told you we review, and we do it through a series of methods in a public forum. Sometimes we've given our participants coins, and they get to basically buy what they want. And so you really start to see what people want to do when they have their gold coins filling up in a bucket. We do all sorts of different exercises where people can really get engaged with the process. And that allows us to test and build consensus. We go away and we come back. All this is done through conceptual design. And before we jump into engineering and detailed design, we want to make sure that we have a cohesive vision, and we want to make sure that people all agree with the jumping off point. So that's our design process. It's really straightforward. We love doing it. We do it every day, and we'll continue doing it because this is our passion. So I'm going to touch on some past projects. I'm going to start with some projects you should be familiar with that are in your backyard. Gerard Park here, our friend Michael Red worked on this project, and we think it's actually really important in the whole aspect of what you have here in your park system. You all know Meyer Amphitheater as well. It's another major iconic situation right here in West Palm Beach. And then the Centennial Town Square. You cannot overlook the power of water. We've done so many of these interactive water features, and I got to tell you, it's the best money spent because people show up. They love it. It's hot here. You want a place where you can get some cool down, but also a place for shade. But what I really love is just this multi-generational, intergenerational sort of aspect of everybody hanging out around water. This weekend, I was really excited to be there at the ribbon cutting for the gardens that we designed at the Norton Museum. That was a really tremendous opportunity. I think for me personally and for our firm, that gift to the city of West Palm Beach is just something you just cannot, put your finger on. And the fact that it's going to be open on Fridays and Saturdays to the public is a big deal. This is a public garden. This is for you. And we were really excited about those designs. I touched on the city of Boca Raton, working with them. We're doing a waterfront park for them. We just finished concept for this park. Also on the Intracoastal, it's a signature park, has a boat ramp, has all the same things you guys have except some tennis courts and some other things, but very, very similar experience. Right up the street in Riviera Beach, you may be familiar with this park. This is also a CRA effort, and many of the projects I'm showing you were done with a CRA. This Marine District Park was really, really challenging. It took a while, but at the end of the day, it turned out really fantastic. Down the city of Dania Beach, we've also done some great work for them. Their waterfront ocean park was completed, phase 1. We're working on a phase 2 right now with Kimberly Horn, so we have a lot of team members here that get involved in all of our projects. And this is that water feature in Pompano. It's tiny, and this is a CRA project, but I gotta tell you, every time I go by there, it's packed. I mean, there's families there, everybody's just having a great time. And so we think that these simple moves make a big difference in terms of bringing community together. A few of our legacy projects, this is a Riverwalk down in Fort Lauderdale. Some of you may be familiar with that, and all the investment that has been brought to bear based on this investment by the city has really turned out to be great. But what's wonderful about the Riverwalk is that it's programmed, and we want you to remember that in this process. Program, program, program. Give people things to do, and they will show up. Las Olas. So we've had this almost 30-year love affair with the city of Fort Lauderdale and the beach. We started back in the 90s with the wave wall and that whole redevelopment. People were against it. They're like, why would you change the pattern? We like parking right on the sand. And we turned it into a world-class destination. I mean, this is their Chamber of Commerce flag, that wave wall. Some of you may be familiar with a parking lot that used to be there. It was across the street from the Elbow Room. That parking lot's gone. The city had the guts to stand up and say, you know what, that land belongs to the people, let's create a park. And so we moved the parking back and put it in a garage, and now this is gonna be a destination waterfront park that's under construction right now. It's pretty exciting. And then in Owensboro, Kentucky, this is a project that my partner Paul Kissinger worked on. This was a city on the Ohio River that really dealt with some difficult times. Everybody sort of moved out to the burbs, and so the downtown went down. But the city leadership came together and said, you know what, we have an opportunity to make this better. And so we created a series of parks, a series of linear parks right on the water, and it's pretty incredible. It's definitely been a main attraction for the community, and the investment has been over several $1 billion from outside investors. And I thought I'd touch on a project that's outside of the country just so you can understand our global presence. This is in Valletta. This is a cruise ship terminal. It was a historic landmark and still is. That basically those buildings house all of the sort of storage for ships. And what was very urban, gritty, sort of rough, we turned it into a place for people. So now they have major cruises coming through, and people are coming here for historic tourism because the area is just so beautiful. So in closing, I'm going to touch on a project that we completed for the city of North Miami Beach, and this is also in the CRA. This project was interesting. I received a call from a contractor we do a lot of work with, and he said, we need you. And I was like, okay. So he said, I need you to meet me at Channel 10 on this day. And I show up at Channel 10, and it's me, it's the leadership from Channel 10, it's the contractor, and it's the Miami-Dade County Parks Director. They discovered a piece of property in this neighborhood that had been dilapidated and basically, not used. It was actually very dangerous. Come to find out that it's a park. It was a park on the county's record for over 50 years. It hadn't been touched. And this community basically didn't have what other people have, and they should. And so they asked us to give our services, and we did. We did this project pro bono. We helped them find all the suppliers and people that donate to the project. And what was fantastic about it was that we were able to change minds. It was a transformational project. We actually spent time with the community, and they were very skeptical. They were like, why are you guys here? We know you have an idea already. They had flags up protesting, signs like, why are you guys here? And we're like, we're here for you. We want to give you a park. And it was so meaningful. And the one thing I remember was this young girl really, and she asked for an orange slide. She got her orange slide. You know, I thought that if somebody asked for something in the process, help them get there. And so it really made us excited. This is the ribbon cutting. So much support and so much love for this community. And now they take care of this park. There's a retired Marine that lived right next door, and he said, my grandchildren couldn't play in the yard. They couldn't play outside because it was so dangerous, and now you've given them a place to go. And it just really made us very excited and pleased to be a part of the community. So we're here to answer your questions. We really appreciate the opportunity, and we look forward to working together.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Perfect timing. Okay, we're now going to go to the questions as soon as we get to 0.
Good process.
Yeah, really. Okay, I'm going to start with Commissioner James.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. Very, very good job. You have been to Currie Park. In fact, you mentioned that you had interacted with some of the homeless people there this morning. What is your strategy for how you would approach incorporating the homeless situation in Currie Park as you begin a design for the park?
You know, one thing that people don't always realize that homeless are people, right? They're us. And, you know, we need to make sure that the park is inclusive. We also need to make sure that it's safe and it's enjoyable for all. So there's lots of different strategies. We worked on a project in Los Angeles, and the question was, what are we going to do about the gang members? I was like, well, the gang members are parents, and they want their kids to go to the park, right? And so we invited them to the meetings, and they showed up, and they got involved. And so for us, we feel that you have to hit things head on. You can't ignore it. We can't stick our heads in the ground and think that it's going to go away. We have to work with people. You know, when you provide a place that's beautiful, beautiful people will show up. When it's not beautiful, it'll be the opposite. So that's our strategy, is just getting everybody involved from the get-go.
Thank you. Commissioner Ryan?
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. The question that I had, but I'm not sure how it really relates because it's hard to tell through any of your concepts, but what is your experience and relationship with all the other regulatory agencies that are engaged in a permitting process for not just the city, but anything on the waterway? And if you have concepts that you're just not showing us that would incorporate the water?
Yeah, we have deep experience with them. So everyone from the Army Corps to DEP, Fish and Wildlife, we know them all very well. As I said before, we do a tremendous amount of waterfront parks, so we know them all. We spend a lot of time in Tallahassee. So we have team members that are very close to them. Our friends from ATM, they do a lot of marina work, a lot of marine front work are here to work with us on this project. And so we would bear on them, but we'd also bear on ourselves in terms of our experience with them. From the project in Dania Beach that I showed you, we had to go through a lot of permitting because there were dunes that were being eroded that needed attention, and we had to actually design dunes and refresh them because they had been damaged due to storms. So for us, you know, these experiences are based on relationships, they're personal, and we know it like the back of our hand. So we'll spend time in Tallahassee, we'll make sure that we can work with them and work with you in terms of the process. But what's very important, and we're going to stress this, start early. Don't wait until the last minute to start reaching out to these folks. And we will recommend that. We will definitely recommend it. As we're in conceptual design, let's make sure that the regulatory agencies know that. Now, in terms of designs, and we did not show you designs because we need to hear from you and work with you. We've done lots of wonderful projects that allow people to step down to the water. You have living shorelines there now, which are great. There are all sorts of different ideas that can get people engaged to understand why the water is here and what's so important about it, what's important about the wildlife, the fish, what's important about just touching water, simple things. So we'll work very, very closely with you on the concepts and show you how these different aspects can come together. So we really want to make sure that everything we do in terms of the design connects water back to the land and water to people.
Thank you. Commissioner Neering.
Thank you. Thank you for responding to the RFP, and thank you for your presentation. Could you, and you've done this in your presentation, but as you noticed in the RFP, one of the critical issues is really the connectivity between the neighborhoods.
Yes.
So that whether you live in Pleasant City or in Northwood, that you feel welcome to the
Yes.
park. Could you just talk a little bit about that concept? I mean, I think you've done a pretty good job on that, even in your 15-minute presentation, but that is so critical, I think, to ultimately what this end result looks like.
It's very critical. One of the things that we always do is engage the community. We feel that a lot of our meetings that we're going to have should occur within the community. We want to go to people, not have people come to us. From a design perspective, that 23rd Street corridor is huge. You should be able to walk, and you can kind of see it already. It's starting to transform. You know, when we've been going to this park for years, and you know, there are lands that were not developed that are now developed. There's a lot of really great grassroots opportunities where people are opening businesses, et cetera. They need to tie to the park. The park becomes an anchor to the community and vice versa. And the only way we can do that is by engaging people and designing for them and designing with them. And so the things that you're encouraging now through the CRA, whether it's you know, facade improvements or streetscape, when things start to look nice, and there's so much research out there about why and how this works, people start to show up, people start to care. If you go to the neighborhoods that have wonderful tree canopy and it's beautiful homes, they're doing pretty good. People are healthy, they're nice. When you go to the neighborhoods that don't, that are missing trees, that have cracked sidewalks, it's a whole different story. So we want to work with you to make sure that we tie it all together. We will start at more of a 30,000 foot on this project kind of viewpoint, looking at the surrounding area. We thought that was very important is to connect the people that live within a mile, people that are within walking distance. Let's work with them first to make sure that they're involved in the project. So all our designs will be truly rooted in connectivity, and not just by car, multimodal. So we want people to come here by bike, we want them to ride their skateboard, we want them to walk, and we want it to be very comfortable for them to come to the park.
Thank you. Commissioner Lambert?
Thank you. I have a question regarding your section on project understanding. You mentioned that this is certainly a challenging property. I'm curious what you see as the biggest challenge and how have you overcome similar challenges in past projects?
Yes. Every project we work on is different. We approach it in a similar manner in terms of our design concept. But the challenges here are very interesting because you have Flagler, it's basically cutting it off. It's basically cutting the park off from the rest of the neighborhood. So you have a fast-moving road at Flagler. You have some things that not everybody in the area would like to do, such as the boat ramp. I'm sure that if you survey the demographic in the area, they don't own boats, right? So if you start to look at the different aspects that are in the park, those challenges will be overcome once we listen to the people who are going to be using the park. And so for us, different projects that we worked on that had similar challenges, we hit them head on in terms of why people want to come to the park. What we typically do is a finding of necessity, or basically a finding of why people would want to come to the park. And we look at all the different aspects of what's there now and what could be there. And we work with them very closely to figure out, those elements that they would want to see in the park. So.
Thank you. And Commissioner Schoaf, this is Commissioner Schoaf's district, so she's particularly interested in this.
Very excited. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for responding. Well done today. You've certainly described some situations where you've had diverse conditions and diverse groups of stakeholders. When you talk about that mile distance away from Currie Park specifically, you're dealing with a lot of different socioeconomical, ethnic makeup, different histories. What would be your strategy for engaging those diverse groups to get something so we can avoid park gentrification, basically?
Oh my God, I'm so happy you asked this question. This is probably one of the #1 challenges that I was mentioning is this whole idea of gentrification. We don't want people to leave. This is a place you have community, you have people that are rooted in the area. And so what's important is that we create someplace beautiful because everybody wants something beautiful. But we also create it in more of a inclusive manner. So in our early conceptual design meetings, we want to go meet with people in the community. We will walk the street. We will be out there with everybody. We need to set up opportunities with the Boys and Girls Club. But I think what's most important is that we need to talk to the kids. The reason why people come to parks primarily is because they have kids. And their kids need to run off steam. I have an 11-year-old daughter, and she spent a lot of time in the park because we needed her to settle down before we put her to bed. And it's important for us to find those churches, find the community groups, find everybody who is a stakeholder and get them involved in the process. And we will draw with them. For us, it's definitely a give and take sort of opportunity. And once we do that, we'll schedule it all out with you. Hopefully the city has someone here that's responsible for PR that we can work with to get the word out and get the message out. That's the other thing that's a challenge is, people will say, I didn't hear about it. So we have to have several meetings because not everybody's going to be able to go. We can have meetings on Saturdays. We can have meetings on hours that are convenient to others and get their ideas. And I think the most important thing that we can do is if there's an idea that's great, incorporate it. If there's an idea that's not so great, it doesn't fit our budget or it's a little far-fetched, we'll tell them why it doesn't work. It's a simple communication. And so with you, we're looking very forward to working together closely with your constituents because you guys represent the people and we want to make sure that what we're delivering is what the people want.
Thank you.
Thank you. I live within walking distance of the park, and so I'm looking forward to continuing to use the park. How do you envision connecting the neighborhoods to the park? And they're pretty diverse neighborhoods as you look around. How do you connect those neighborhoods to each other and to the park?
So one thing that connects people together is food.
That's true.
Believe it or not. A lot of this is very simple. A lot of it is just straight up programming. There are activities that people like, depending on your community, depending on the demographics, but everybody likes food. So for us, we want to work really closely with you guys and your CRA to kind of develop programming that addresses all the needs of the people in the area. You're doing a concert, make sure the concert is one that everybody's going to want to go to. You can have different bands and different activities and different opportunities, but programming different things throughout the year is it. That's the game changer. And this is an investment. So for us in a lot of the parks that we work with in communities, we want to make sure that it's not just about getting it built. It's about the long term and being there forever. One of our good friends and clients up in Detroit, and as you guys all know, that city has gone through quite a bit. We just participated in the competition last year for their riverfront park. Unfortunately, we didn't win, but there were so many good people there that the city wins no matter what. But what we found that was really interesting is that if you ask, if you have the vision, if you ask, the money will show up, the programming will show up. They received a $50 million investment from a private donor. But only $40 million of that money was allowed to go to the park. The balance of $10 million went to conservation. So you have staff, you have limited staff. We're about to do something really incredible. We want to make sure that you have the resources to get it done. And there are resources out there. We will help you. We'll help you find those foundations. Obviously, with our work on the Norton, we know a few people that have money. We would love to make sure that they contribute and they make their community even better. So
Thank you.
make sure they have food.
Commissioner James, do you have a second question?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm looking through your proposal to try to get a sense of schedule and timeline, and I do see something on page 89 which seems to suggest 8 months, but 8 months for what? Because that seems a pretty short period of time to provide the scope of services that the RFP called for. So what am I missing here?
So let me elaborate on the schedule. And with schedules, we want to work very closely with our clients, and we can propose timelines, but what's really important is your timeline, your funding timeline, as well as your ability to get it done. So concept design typically takes between 2 to 4 months. Okay, so that's concept design. Then we're going to go through a process of design development, and that process takes a little bit longer. It could be more in the range of 6 to 8 months. We need to bid it. We need to go through the whole procurement process. That depends on you, because we'll do a lot to get the work done, but we want to make sure that we follow your procurement rules and get that done. A park of this nature in terms of construction typically takes between 8 months to 12 months, hopefully shorter, depending on how we're moving. But that front end, the conceptual design and the consensus part, that can take time because that is all based on schedules. We have a seasonal audience here in some cases, right? So we need to make sure that we schedule all of those dates and we do it way in advance so everybody knows. So as soon as we're brought on board, we'll kick off the project with a Microsoft project schedule, and it'll identify all the milestones, everything we need to do and when we need to do it and decisions that need to be made. So what's important is that we can ramp up. We can move really, really fast. We can shorten the duration of detailed design, but we really need you to work with us. We had to do that in Boca, and one of the things we learned very quickly is that their procurement process is slow. And so you have to make sure that you're going through the steps because it's state law. You got to do it properly. So for us, sitting down with you in design, we'll be through it in about a year. You get construction also in about a year. So if you're looking in your horizon of your cycles, let's talk about 2022 in that time period to cut a ribbon. And those are just timelines I'm giving you off the cuff based on experience. And we really want to work very closely with you to determine those dates.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was excellent. I loved your emphasis on, design being democratic and really bringing in all folks to hear and to help design this. We've been working with some children to help design a playground on our waterfront. And they were at the library on Friday and at the waterfront on Saturday. Just about every one of them wanted a zip line. So zip lines must be really in.
They're really in. We've done a few of them. They're very popular.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Mr. Hayden, can we take a few minutes?
If you insist, Madam Mayor.
Thank
Yes,
you.
you can.
I think the next one's scheduled for 10:30, and maybe we can...
Ahead of schedule.